this is the first year we've gone international. We went on quite a tour. This is our last stop. What are your thoughts, reflections on the tour that we've been on? What have we learned?
Before we do the international, I've had a lot of people ask about the story, and I've been telling them all to wait.
Okay. So let's start with the story. We get it at every Q&A. How did you meet?
Over to you, Shaun.
So I was fortunate enough to actually hire Varun for his first job. At least that's what I like to tell myself. But he and I met many years ago at a software company we both worked at. And at the time, it was very clear to me, even though I was a software engineer and thought very highly of myself, that he was clearly better than I was, and that was really awesome. And I had such a fortunate time to work on a lot of projects with him at that company. Of course, eventually we parted ways, and he went on to bigger and better things. And then a couple of years later, I actually went and started my first software company. And then finally, when it was time to start HighLevel, I just knew that I needed the best partner I could find, and for me that was the best software engineer I'd ever known. And so of course I called Varun, who at the time was working I think with his brother on another software app, which was a terrible idea. And I told him, look, this is terrible, it's going to fail, so give me a call back when it fails. And then that was it. And then a couple of months later, he called me up and he said, okay, you're right, it failed. What do you got? And then of course I'd love to say that we're so smart, we jumped right into HighLevel, but we really just spent the next, 2 years, 9 months, I forget, a long time, working on several other...
I think we spent about 3 years.
Yeah.
Built many different applications.
Yeah, that's true. Building a bunch of apps that also failed, by the way. But we kept pivoting, and we kept trying to find the right niche, something, and
Industry.
Yeah, right. And then anyhow, we finally got HighLevel 1.0 off the ground, which was at first really cool because...
Well, and in that journey, there were a few things. So the one thing we always knew, we were building for SMBs, but we kept trying to solve problems that we wanted to solve. Hey, I know you guys want to send invoices, let's help you send invoices. I know you guys want to book appointments, let's help you book appointments. But all through this journey, when we asked them, what do you need help with, they all kept saying one thing, more sales. But we dismissed that because, of course, if you could get more sales on demand, everyone would get it. So we'll try to solve the problem we want to solve. And we failed for 3.5 years. And our customers were telling us the entire time what they wanted. And finally, we're like, okay, let's solve the problem that they actually want solved, which is more sales. And how do you solve sales for small business is reviews. And that's where we started.
Reviews and two-way text messaging. It was interesting because at the time I had a previous customer base of about 1,000 small businesses for my last software company. We started selling it to them. They were really excited. They said, take my money. They kept throwing their credit cards at us. We got really whooped up. And then 2 weeks later, they would call and they would cancel. And, I'm a pretty, indirect, bashful guy. So I said, what's wrong with you? Are you dumb or are you stupid? And these people knew me. So they said, oh, no, that's really great. It does everything you said it would, but we just don't have time to implement it into our business. And that was a really tough point for Varun and I, because as software engineers, we felt like we could make almost anything, but we certainly didn't know how to manufacture time. And so, lucky for us, we did have a couple of customers sticking around, and one of them was a co-customer, and we got actually a cold call one day from this guy who ran a marketing agency. He said, hey, I have a co-customer in common with you guys, and you're doing a bunch of stuff with them, and I'd love to see what you're doing, right? And so, like every amazing idea that's ever happened to me in my life, I said, oh, this is the dumbest thing. Why should we talk to this guy? He doesn't pay us any money. But he was nice. He was persistent, and he seemed like he knew what he was doing. So we got back on the phone with Rob and Alex, and he could continue that story.
Yeah, so it was interesting. That customer called me and said, hey, there's these two guys. They're trying to install some software, but they really don't know what they're asking for or anything, and I don't know either. So can you call them and give them access? And so, yeah, I called Shaun and Varun, and I didn't know who they were. Thought they were megacorp, working for a large company, and we just hit it off on the call, gave them access, and they were able to install it. And I said, wow, this is great. What can I do to learn more about the product and install it for all of our customers at the agency? And we just started talking on that call, and at that time, we were doing what every agency does is, you take 20 different tools, you try to use APIs and Zapier, and you try to glue it all together and roll it out to your customers. And we did a fairly good job. And I remember running into the conference room and taking a picture of what we had mapped out in the conference room and ran and threw it up on the screen. And Shaun and Varun both looked at it and said, "Oh, this is interesting. Well, give us a couple days and we'll call you back." And that was the end of the call. And I just thought they were brushing me off because what are you going to do with that picture? And then a couple days later, I got a call at 8 in the morning, and when I was driving to the office, and it was Shaun, and it was, "Hey dude, what are you doing?" I was like, "Who is this again?" And I'm trying to jump to the office. He's like, "Well, can you get on Zoom?" And I was like, "Sure. As soon as I get to the office, I'll call you back." And of course, I get to the office, start my day, start drinking coffee, talking to the team, and forget about it. 2 hours later, Shaun calls me back and says, "Hey, where are you?" And I was in a meeting at that time, and I was like, "Busy?" And he's like, "No, you need to get on right now." Get on the computer, and they had built kind of the next iteration of HighLevel, really taking a lot of the automation tools and things like that. And I said, "Well, this is great. Let's roll it out to one of my customers, immediate success." And then I went back and said, "Hey, I got a couple more customers. Let's just keep rolling it out. We'll pay for it, whatever we need." And then I basically said, "Hey, you guys are bringing so much value to me. How can I help you?" And their response was like, "I don't know. Can you get it out to more people?" And so I said, "Okay, well, let me reach out to a couple of agencies that I know." And at that time, I think I reached out to about 20 of them, and about 14 of them actually, well, everyone said yes, but agency owners, everyone here in the room will always say yes to random stuff. But there's only 14 of them that actually took action, used the software. And one of them actually happened to be Rob Bailey. I don't know if he's here.
So Rob is actually getting a HighLevel tattoo right now.
Oh.
I'm not even kidding.
Seriously.
Pictures halfway down.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, Rob Bailey was one of the first people on the software, and he had actually sold his agency at that time. And what was amazing about it is, he reached out to me and said, "Oh my gosh, this software, if I had it when I was running my agency, you would have saved me about $50,000 to $100,000 a month in what I was spending." And he was actually transitioning to becoming a business coach. And at that time, I think this was November of 2017, and he said, "Hey, this software is
November 2018.
No, 2017. This was before it. Yeah. Sorry, it feels ages ago. And so he said, "Hey, in January, I'd love for you guys to come and present the software." And so I went back to Shaun and Varun and said, "Hey, let's get on a plane and go to San Diego for this event." And unfortunately, Varun couldn't make it, but Shaun and I flew out there. And it was the first time that we met in person, and we got a really sketchy Airbnb out there, and we were up all night on Zoom with Varun. And literally on the flight there, I was rebuilding the website so that we could take orders and try to turn it into a funnel. So we get there, we're up all night. We didn't practice any presentation. We completely forgot about that part of it. We were just excited to go there. So the next day, Shaun and I show up, and we're just talking to everyone. No one knew who Shaun was. A few people knew who I was, and they just thought I was an attendee. And we're just talking, they were just part of the event. And funny enough, one of our competitors rolled through the door, and they were actually presenting. And so we just kind of looked at each other and were like, "Oh crap, what did we get ourselves into?" And luckily, he was just presenting on just a general topic, and then he left. And then it was like, "Okay, we're okay." And then Rob Bailey asked us to come up and we present. We breezed through a demo of the software in about 15 minutes or so. I mean, we just rolled through it. Varun is on the screen behind us on Zoom, just smiling. And, just like this, yeah. And we just delivered the demo, and then it was just silent. And we're like, "All right, well, thank you all, we're getting off stage." And then people just started, no, we're ready. And then people just started asking us questions. And what was amazing about it is people were literally at the point of throwing their credit cards at us, like, "Take our money." And they started asking us, like, "Hey, can you guys offer a white label mobile app? Can you offer an annual package?" And we just all kind of looked at each other and said, "Sure." And I slithered away back to the computer and started adding the products in there. And what was fun about it, I think there's about 20 people in the room and about 20 people virtually, and everyone ended up, or I think 20 people in the room purchased, and most of everyone virtually purchased, and the last couple ended up purchasing a couple of days later. The other fun part about that story is we never really had a true sign-up process, and so, so Varun is on the camera, so he's just smiling, and there's a Google sheet that's populating all the results, and Varun is...
So as people were signing up, all it did was put in entries into a Google sheet. It wasn't creating any accounts, there was no way to log in. So I was just adding entries into the database so they could actually log into the application. So
Varun had that stuck look of where he's just looking on camera, but his fingers are just running away. It's awesome. But yeah, I mean, the fun part about that story is immediately after that event, it was just Shaun, Varun, and I who was just getting on every onboarding call, talking to every customer. And we just kept that going all the way to where we're at today. And now we've scaled those teams up and we still follow that same model. So we haven't really changed since then.
No, but through that whole journey, there were a few things that were really important. Like the 3.5 years where me and Shaun kept building software, we might not have found customers, but what we got really good at is building software. So when Robin showed up and said, hey, can I have these changes? We could make those changes in 2 days and then roll out all of those changes. Over a period of time, we got really good at releasing features which we still try to stick to today. So those 3 years was really just, if you've seen Karate Kid, that was wax on, wax off. We were practicing, and then we were really good at building features, which we still do today. And through that whole journey, like both for Shaun and me, I mean, one thing that I learned is the longer you give yourself to fail, the more likely that you succeed. Like through those 3 or 4 years, we were able to keep going at it so long because we had partners that supported us. But by the time that event happened in 2019, if we didn't start making money, we would have had to stop. But luckily, it all worked out in the end. So,
Amazing.
nice job.
Amazing. I love that story. I love how you guys weren't even prepared to actually onboard somebody when you rolled in there. And that's an important lesson, right? Like we get hung up waiting until we're totally ready. But you can't. You gotta just take the meeting and get in there and have a Varun on Zoom ready to manually make it happen. All right, cool. Where are my mic runners at? Let's kick it off.